Today, we are going to do a chit chat, get ready with me. I'm not going anywhere. I'm literally just playing in makeup because it's been a very long time since I've played in makeup. I don't even think I remember the steps at this point, but we gonna try. Cause I got some things I need to get off my chesticles, okay? Yeah, we haven't done one of these in so freaking long. I'm not mentioning any products that I'm using because I've used all of these products in all of my previous videos, and if you're a belleglow veteran, then you already know exactly what's going on here. So let us get started. The first thing I want to show you guys that I got that I am super excited about are these house drinks. I got the sampler package because I wanted to try them all out first before I actually order like flavors. Oh wait, did I not shake this before So I got this one in the peach passion fruit. It's a little cloudy. I didn't even realize that. So I guess I gotta shake that up. It's not bubbly or anything. It's like a really licorice, like a liqueur, but wine. That's what these are. That's like how I would describe that. This is the Rosé, which I heard is one of the most popular ones aside from the passion fruit peach, which I know I'm gonna love. And then this is the ginger yuzu. And no, this is not sponsored. I bought this with my own coin. I saw it on Aaliyah's face, of course. So she got them and I was like, ooh, those look really cute. Not only are they aesthetically pleasing, we know we love a good aesthetic, but I figured they also taste good too because she was saying how they taste really good and they're low in carb. This is the lemon lavender. I've already opened and tried this one. It's not my favorite. I like the liqueur itself. It's actually an apéritif. I like it itself, but I don't think I like this flavor that much because of the lemon. The lemon was really, really, really strong for me, and I don't really like lemony stuff like that. So that's that. But anyways, so those are cool if you want to try those out. Aaliyah, I think she has a coupon code. You can go watch one of her videos or something and look for the coupon code. I think it's like Aaliyah's Face 20 or Aaliyah's Face 15. Aaliyah's Face 15 or something like that. I don't know. I was scrolling on Instagram and I saw somebody post something about how Black creators are either paid like less than a fraction of what, our counterparts are paid. And if we're paid, right? Because a lot of these collaborations, they send you product, but they're not really, ooh, this is kind of light. I went to the beach yesterday and I got a really good tan, so I'm gonna have to combine this with something darker. But yeah, like they don't even pay you most of the time, especially when you're just starting out. They kind of do brand collabs with you and your payment is exposure. So like I don't have an issue with being paid in exposure just because even though I have amassed a decent following, I do still feel like I'm just starting out still. So I don't know why I just did this. I haven't even put foundation on yet and I'm already doing my concealer. This is how you know I am out of practice. But you know what? We're gonna make it work. Because I'm sitting here running my mouth, completely forgetting, what I was doing here. But yeah, I don't mind being paid in exposure just because, like I said, I'm just still starting out. I've amassed a decent following, but nowhere near, what I would like to have. There is definitely a huge disparity in terms of paid content creators when it comes to, Black creators versus other creators. So it's definitely something that I'm very aware of. And the deeper and deeper I get into content creation, the more aware I am becoming. And it's a little disheartening because it's like you feel like you're making decent content. I feel like I've seen, my counterparts' content and it's not any better or worse than mine, but it just seems like if you're not doing some type of like drama content or pranks and challenges and things like that, then it's more of like a slow progression in terms of channel growth. And I'm okay with that because I'm not really willing to do, I ain't willing to do clown behavior for no followers. I'm not doing that. It's not my style. It's not really my thing. So I'm okay with that. But I do notice, you know, the difference between certain content creators and the rate at which they grow and others. And I just chalk that up to being, you know, the minority in that sense, because if you think about it, we're what, 13% of the population? And out of the 13% of the population that is Black, how many of us are content creators, right? So the percentage is even smaller. You would think that that would work in our favor and give us more leverage, but it's like if you take a percentage of the 13% and you consider them diversity hires. Diversity hires only make up so much percent of a corporation, usually 6 to 7%, right? So think about 6 to 7% of 13%, but even smaller because only a certain percentage of that 13% are content creators. So if you frame it that way, and I'm speaking from a completely HR perspective because that's what I do, but if you speak of it in that way, then it kind of makes more sense as to why we kind of get siloed and only like specific content creators are kind of chosen for all of the brand deals, or you'll see like one or two, like, you know, get chosen to do everything and kind of like shoot to the top really quick because they have to have somebody to represent, you know, people of color, but they certainly cannot have everybody, nor do they want to have everybody. So when you think of it that way, you know, do the chances fare better for us? No, but I don't know. I also feel like this is one of those jobs where you kind of have to like to do it. And if you think about it as a job, then that's when it becomes a job. You know what I'm saying? Like, I actually enjoy creating content and I enjoy doing photo shoots. I enjoy modeling. I enjoy, you know, being creative, because I always told myself, you know, I would do the professional thing and get the professional job, but I had to have something that makes me feel like I can put my creative side to use. Because believe it or not, I used to be in a band and I used to sing. I used to do like open mic nights and I used to do poetry and all this other stuff. And I don't know, I suffer from stage fright. I know, right? Stage fright. So on this platform, it's like, I feel like I can talk and I can do my thing and I'm not necessarily in front of a crowd. So like, I'm okay with that. But when it comes to being in front of a crowd and all of that, it's just different. Like, I'm not really trying to do that. So the singing thing didn't really go that far. That's okay. That's all right. But it is something that I definitely enjoy doing. But content creation, I also enjoy doing that as well. So I definitely think that whatever it is doesn't have to be content creation, but you have to like whatever it is that you're doing so that it doesn't feel like work, which is also another one of the 4 agreements. If you guys have not read the 4 agreements yet, please go ahead and cop that and read that. That is going to change your life. The 4 agreements are to be impeccable with your word, do not take anything personally, do not make assumptions, and do your best. Okay? I think you do your best with whatever it is that you have, but I definitely do notice that a lot of these brands, they want you to work and whatnot, but they're not necessarily willing to pay you for the work that you're doing. A lot of this stuff is like free promotion in a sense. And again, like I said, I don't mind reposting. Exposure is good for somebody at my caliber. You know, I'm still kind of just starting out, not really very known in the influencer industry. So it works for now. But I feel like as I grow my following and as I get to a different level, I'm not going to want to do sponsored content, you know, for free products. I'm going to want to do content that involves, you know, pay because who wouldn't, you know? So I definitely feel like eventually that's going to become a thing and I'll deal with it when it gets to that point. But for now, I think it's okay. I won't lie to you. It's a lot harder than the content creators make it look, okay? Like, I'm talking about trying to get content filmed perfectly, trying to describe the products and, you know, what they do and still make it personable, because I do not believe in doing reviews for products that I would not really use or products that I don't actually like, because I believe in authenticity. Anybody who knows me knows that. So it's like, I want to hit all of the marks, but at the same time, I don't want to be fake, you know? So I feel like it's just a lot. Like, it's a lot harder than it looks. Some people make it look really easy, and that's cool, but it's definitely a lot trying to remember everything that you're supposed to talk about, how you're supposed to, you know, post and all that. Like, there's guidelines and stuff. So just like any other job, there's guidelines for how you're supposed to do the job, basically. As I start to grow and maybe, you know, spend a little bit more money on things, I definitely will start to feel like I need to be properly compensated, you know what I'm saying, for my time. But right now, I feel like I'm just still in the growing phases. So that's been cool with that. It's a little update on that part. I've been watching a lot of movies. So recently I was watching Behind Her Eyes. Is that what it's called? I think it's called Behind Her Eyes. And then this other movie called I Care a Lot. Or no, Behind Her Eyes I think was a series, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember, y'all. I don't even remember nothing. I just watch it, put it in the Rolodex and move on. But I think it was like a series or something. And it was really good. It's like really like twists and turns and unexpected twists and turns. I won't tell you guys, because if you haven't seen it, you're not gonna like me. So I won't tell you guys what it's about, or what happens. But it's basically about this girl that befriends this guy and starts to have an affair with him, and then also befriends his wife, and a whole bunch of wild, crazy stuff happens. And the end is nothing like how you expect it to be. So I 10 out of 10 recommend. Now, I Care a Lot. I don't know. I feel some type of way about that movie. I feel like the end, I loved it in the sense that, you know, it was also a very different ending than I expected, but I was very satisfied and pleased with the ending. I won't give it away too much, but that was also a really good one. I promise you, at the beginning of that movie, like, everything inside of me wanted to turn the movie off, because I have a soft spot for kids and elderly people. And so when I saw what Homegirl was doing, I was like so enraged. I'm like, how can somebody make a movie about this? Like, this is crazy. Not only are you giving people ideas, but how could you treat older people like this? Man, I was going through a whole host of emotions, and I had to keep telling myself it's not real. Like, it's just a movie, relax. But I was so mad. And if you guys have seen it, then you know why I was mad. But I'm still kind of mad. But it ended up working out, so I guess. But it was crazy. So if you haven't seen that, I also recommend that. But yeah, I was hearing a lot of talk about both of those movies on Twitter. So I was like, okay, let me go ahead and watch. You know, Twitter never fails, especially when you're looking for new stuff to watch, because it's so easy to get like, what do I call it? Show streaming fatigue. Because it's like you feel like you're just sitting there watching stuff constantly, and you're like scrolling through trying to find something new to watch. And then like you get to one thing and you're like, I'm not in the mood for that. And then you start watching something else and you're like, I'm not in the mood for that either. So it can get really annoying. At least for me, it does. Like, I'm very indecisive and I don't ever like have a specific mood for something. I just kind of watch whatever I feel like watching in that moment, but I don't know until I hit it. You know, kind of like men, but that's a whole nother conversation. You know, they don't really know what they want until they got it. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I kind of like this. And it's like, no shit, Sherlock. Have you guys been watching The Bachelor and Married at First Sight? Like, I feel like The Bachelor and Married at First Sight are problematic in two completely different ways. But it just goes to show like how clueless men really are. Like, I don't know. Well, maybe not just men, like people in general, how clueless people in general really are. So The Bachelor, to me, this show has always been problematic in the sense that you take a whole bunch of girls, you put them in a house together to date one guy. And consequently, you take, or vice versa, you take a bunch of guys, you put them in a house together to date one girl. You know it's gonna be some drama, okay? And obviously that's why they do it. But the first thing, because we know I'm like a diversity person, I like to see diversity, I wanna see diversity, especially when it comes to big franchises that can afford to have diversity. It's the same concept. Like every corporation, every business, every operation model has to have a diversity hire, right? So let's think of the current Bachelor as a diversity hire. It's essentially what he is. And then with the diversity hire, they took a whole bunch of racially ambiguous looking women. Some not so much, obviously, because you have to have parameters, you have to have outliers. But for the most part, it's a bunch of racially ambiguous looking young ladies. And we know that his parents are biracial. So in my mind, there's already a certain level of bias there, just because I feel like they knew what they were doing. And I feel like from the very beginning, when I saw who the Bachelor was gonna be, I knew he wasn't going to pick a black girl. I knew that. I knew he was not going to pick a black girl. And it's not that that's problematic in and of itself, because to each his own. I don't believe in racial segregation or, no interracial relationships. I don't really care what you choose to do. However, where I do have a problem is when you invite all of these ladies to be on this show, knowing full and well he wasn't gonna pick none of them. It's like when they have a non-black bachelor and they put mainly non-people of color or whatever. They put mainly, people that aren't.
Have you ever had a dream that you had
people of color as the cast, and then you have a sprinkle here and there, a few black girls here and there. And it's just like, okay, so we see what you did there. You didn't not include us, but you didn't really include us. If you look at it from a data perspective, it is skewed, okay? And it's done that way purposefully. So, first of all, it was old girl Heather talking about she's a queen and they're all peasants and all this other extra stuff. Like, I didn't like her from the very beginning because I just feel like sis is just boiling up drama for no reason. And I guess the whole point of the show is to be dramatic, so I guess. But I can't subscribe to the tomfooleries. Like, I just feel like, you can create drama in other ways without necessarily belittling or, traumatizing these other ladies in the house that you don't know from a can of paint. They didn't do anything to you. You guys are all there for the same reason. So it's just kind of like, let people live their lives. Like, why do you have to be a terrorist? So I just felt like that was a little bit much. Definitely didn't like her from the get. But she made herself known and she got booted. She did that on her own. The trash always takes itself out, right? So, there was that. Then I feel like this whole thing with Rachel and, what came out about her dressing up during, that party and kind of portraying, certain facets of slavery that we know now is not acceptable. We also knew then that it wasn't acceptable. It wasn't that long ago. And, Chris saying the comments that he made and this and that and the other, like, it's just all very problematic. And it's nothing less than what I would expect from this franchise, but it's also just sad that it's like 2021 and we're still doing this, and Rachel is still having to defend herself and having to explain why this is not right. I feel like at our big age, this should not even be a conversation anymore. Like, this should just be a no holds bar. The minute you do it, like, you just automatically get the boot. And it's just like, I'm not saying cancel culture because I don't believe in cancel culture. I do think that once someone has proven themselves to be problematic on multiple occasions, you can change the way that you interact with that person, aka I wouldn't follow Rachel, or I wouldn't engage her in conversation, and maybe I wouldn't like try to see what's going on in her life, but I'm not gonna cancel her. Like, she's a person. I'm sure she has her redeeming qualities, and she can also change eventually if she wants to, or if that's something that she's interested in doing. However, I don't have to be on the receiving end, of the bigotry and the racism. So this shouldn't even be a conversation anymore. Like, we know that it's wrong. Everybody knows that it's wrong. So once you get caught with your hand in the cookie jar, it's one of those things where it's just like, why are you even trying to argue right now? Why are you even trying to explain yourself? Like, wrong is wrong. Just take accountability and move forward. But it's like, she took forever to even make a statement about it. And then even when she did make a statement about it, it was one of those like, oh yeah, it was so long ago and I'm so sorry if I offended anyone in the community, blah, 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 blah. The typical crap that they say when they get caught being racist. So it's just like, no shocker there, right? Like, nothing surprising there whatsoever. So there's that's problematic. Women of color, just for whatever reason, we just don't get treated very well. And I think that if more women were to kind of take a stand and call people out for things that they do that are wrong, it might be a little bit more effective in changing the culture. But the problem is that most people don't really have they don't have the nerve to call people out when they do things wrong. Most people kind of glide past it, or they ignore it, and eventually it explodes. Because you can only ignore things for so long, right? So that's essentially what's happening in Bachelor Nation. We've watched all these seasons pass by where it's basically been the same behavior. We went from not having a bachelor or bachelorette of color at all to then suddenly having two of them. We had a woman of color, and now we have a man of color. And the same biases and the same behavior is persisting. It's not necessarily changing. So the next thing with the mess and the tomfooleries, if you have been watching Married at First Sight, which I can't imagine that anybody with any type of free time on their hands has not been watching, because the season has just been, oh child, the ghetto. Essentially what had happened is that one of the young ladies got matched with this guy, Chris, and the young lady's name is Paige. And if you are not living under a rock, I assume that you have heard about the going-ons between Paige and Chris. And here's my take on it, right? So a little bit of backstory. Basically, they got together from the very beginning in the interviews and stuff, not during the vetting process. So I don't know what was said during the vetting process that allowed Chris to even bypass the judges, but, or the, what do they call them? Specialist or whatever they call them. I don't know what he said to them people in them interviews, because the type of tomfoolery that he is spewing out now, I'm like, I don't even understand how he got past the initial like screening process. But you know, they do say when you first get into a relationship with someone, or when you first meet someone, you're literally meeting their representative, right? And some people are really good actors and actresses. Like, they can really convince you that they are, you know, decent people. And it doesn't mean that he's a bad person. I just think that there's a lot of growing that he needs to do. And he essentially presented himself one way, and he was not what he presented himself to be. I ain't fight nobody, but I also fault the experts, because the experts, I feel like they didn't really do their due diligence. Because if they had, I feel like there are certain things that they would have known about if they had actually done any type of background search on this guy whatsoever. Like, this is not stuff that was hard to find, because you already know, the viewers, we like hounds, bro. All we need is a name. We just need a name. We don't even need a last name, maybe just the first name, you know what I'm saying? A partial name, something, anything. And we can literally figure out this whole person's whole entire life within like maybe the span of 10 to 15 minutes. So I honestly think that if they really wanted to do a thorough background check and really get a full view of what this guy was about before they put him on the show, they could have done that. But they neglected to do so, and now this girl is suffering before it. But I'm going to get to this part, because I kind of feel like she's not necessarily suffering because they're making her suffer. There's also a self-imposed suffering there, but that's a whole nother conversation. I'm going to get to that part. So basically what happened is homeboy presented himself one type of way in front of the experts. They're like, oh, great. He seems like he'd be a great match for this girl because, you know, he went with the whole Christian thing and wanting to find a woman of God and blah, blah, blah. Now, mind you, nothing wrong with being a woman or man of God. I also am, so I don't have an issue with that. But what I do have an issue with is when people use the whole God thing to hide behind their poor behaviors. And they use the God thing to hide behind why they allow people to treat them poorly. That is what I have an issue with. Yeah, so I just feel like, you know, you don't want to use God as a scapegoat just to get what you want type of thing. I think some people tend to use that and manipulate people who are susceptible to it, because as a believer, you want to believe the best of everybody. You want to give everybody grace, especially when they do things to hurt you or they do things to violate you. Because you also have to understand 9 times out of 10, what people do to you really has nothing to do with you, right? So if you frame it that way, it's like you can see why somebody did something and you can understand the behavior without necessarily allowing yourself to become a victim of the behavior. So that's a whole nother, but I digress. So basically, homeboy was out here wilding, okay? He got the girl. When he got the girl, he was already making comments about how he basically wants a girl to look a certain type of way, and she didn't look how he expected her to look. He had said, I think he even said something along the lines of, I hope she's not ugly or something like that, before he even met homegirl. So he already had like this thing in his mind about what he wanted and how he wanted homegirl to look, and she was not looking how he thought she was going to be looking. Because I feel like, now I won't say a lot of black men, because I do feel like, I'm not even going to say most, can't use such like definitive parameters, because there's so many different variables when it comes to men that you can't generalize, right? But I know that a lot of African American men or black men in general tend to go for a certain type of woman, right? And if you are brown skin, maybe not like, you know, average weight, this and that and the other, typically you don't get, you don't get play from those men. Doesn't mean that you don't get play, because there are plenty of men who like different looking women. Like, men like what they like. Some of them have a type, some of them don't have any type. It's a vibe type of thing. So I'm not going to generalize and put black men in that light. I'm not going to do that. That's not fair to them. But there are a lot of men who have a preference for a lighter skin complexion and a certain type of hair texture. And, they're thinking about how their kids are going to look and this and that and the other. Like, those things are very real. And when you've been in the dating arena, like I have, then you know that those things are very real. So he basically was saying that he hopes she's not ugly and this and that and the other. Now, mind you, I think the experts kind of messed up in that sense, because if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure he expressed this to them in front of them. So I feel like they could have done differently. I'm not going to say better or worse, because Paige is not ugly. She's not ugly by any stretch of the imagination. Her features are not typically what people would find mainstream attractive. I don't think that she's ugly, but I think for somebody that is a little bit more vain and maybe a little bit more surface, like Chris is, that is something that they should have taken into account for her sake, not for him, for her sake. Because I don't believe that any woman should be abused or degraded because of their looks, right? Because if he was picking her on his own, he would have picked a certain type of look, and I don't think that that would have been the look that he would have gone for. So by default, even though she's not an unattractive woman, because she's not what he was expecting, she's going to bear the brunt of that and then be subjected to a different level of abuse. Because when somebody is abusing you based off of, whatever their issues are, like, it's one thing. But when they start to make it seem like something's wrong with you, then that can turn into a whole myriad of internalized hatred and an internalized, like, just self-loathing that maybe you wouldn't have suffered from before getting exposed to somebody who's so vain and just so, like, he's just very, like, he's into the look. He's going for a certain type of look. And I know that a lot of guys are like that, and that's fine, but on the street, they wouldn't pick you. So it's okay if somebody is on the street and they're like, oh yeah, I wouldn't talk to that type of woman because she's not my type, and they get to choose. But in this instance, he didn't really get to choose. So I feel like the experts, they set her up, okay? They set her all the way up. They knew that that was not what that man was looking for. He was very clear about what type of woman he wanted, okay? If they had done any research, they would have seen what his exes look like. And typically, if a guy dates the same looking type of women or whatever, in my experience, I feel like they're typically going to go for the same type of thing, because that's kind of their vibe. That's what they're into. So that really easily could have been reviewed, and they could have easily decided to go with somebody that was maybe more along the lines of what he was looking for. So they subjected this girl to all of this abuse for nothing. So, so basically, after they got together, he basically told her that he found out his ex was pregnant. Now, mind you, at this stage in the game, today, we're finding out that the ex that he was engaged to, because apparently before they got married, he had just broken up with his ex. And the ex that he was engaged to, that's not the one that's pregnant. He was making it seem like it was his ex-fiance, but it seems like it's not his ex-fiance that's pregnant. It's a whole other woman. So I don't know who the other woman is just yet. I haven't gone to look at it because I've been busy. I've been working and stuff, but that was the latest that I heard on that homegirl is not even his ex-fiance. It was a whole other woman. It's not the woman that he was most recently engaged to. So I'm going to go later on and try to, read some blogs and stuff and see what they're talking about, who it is. But it's not even the same girl. So essentially, the girl is just wrapped up in a whole bunch of mess that she did not choose for herself. Now, Any self-respecting woman would be like, okay, you know what? This situation is a little bit much. Let me go ahead and remove myself. No, no, no. You know what homegirl did? Homegirl said, well, God doesn't give you more than you can handle, so I think I'm going to keep going with it. Now, you can go one of two ways with this. I feel like having faith that every situation is going to be fruitful or bring you some type of positive experience, or I don't know, whatever it is that you want to call it, having faith in general is not a bad thing. But I also feel like when something is so blatantly just like dysfunctional and you literally choose to ignore all of the red signs, at that point, I start to wonder if there might be something wrong with your judgment. And it's not because she's a bad person, again, but her responses to the stuff that he does, like a lot of the gaslighting and just like hot and cold behavior. And again, I've been there. I've met quite a few Chris's in my lifetime. I've definitely been very much, into a lot of Chris's in my lifetime. But what I've learned from a lot of these Chris's is that, unfortunately, they'll say a lot of things to you. They'll even follow up on some of it, but most of it is just talk. Most of it is just saying things that they know that you want to hear based off of the things that you've told them that you want. And they kind of breadcrumb you along just to keep you involved, but they're not really 100% invested in you. And I think to some degree, like, that's okay. If you just start dating somebody and you're not 100% invested, you're still dating around, that's fine. But y'all are married. Y'all are not dating. This is not like, Temptation Island or something where you get to skip scotch around and kind of figure out what you want type of thing. Like, y'all are married. So I don't think it's appropriate at all. I think it's wildly inappropriate that he's even being allowed to do all of this. But the other side of that is that she's letting him. Every time something happens that, would typically cause any person to be like, all right, enough is enough. It's like she creates another excuse for him and another avenue for the behavior to continue. Even up to the most recent episode, he had gone out of town for a few days to supposedly get a break or whatever. I think he was visiting homegirl, his ex or whatever, because they said his fiance lived in one city, but the city that he was going to was a completely different city. So I feel like he was going to whatever city his actual baby mom lives in and was going to see her to go figure out if he wanted to still be with her. Because he also told Paige that he might want to work it out with his ex. So again, he found out he had a girl pregnant. He's telling you he wants to be with you. Then he's telling you he doesn't know. Then he's telling you he might want to work it out with his ex. Then he disappears for 2 days. Then he comes back. Then he maybe wants to meet with the experts, maybe doesn't. Then he whispers to you that he doesn't want to fall in love with you. When I tell you the amount of gaslighting that is happening in this season, it is infuriating and super triggering. Any woman that has been through any type of emotionally abusive relationship understands exactly what I mean by this, because people can literally say the craziest things to you and you will sit there and hold on to every little word and every little thing that happens and really believe it. You pick and choose the parts that you want to believe to keep going with the narrative, because otherwise you have to let it go, right? But that is just the signal of somebody who does not truly know themselves and or love and value themselves. Because when you do know yourself and love and value yourself, you know that there are boundaries and there are limitations to what you will allow to happen. And there are certain things you're not gonna tolerate. You know what I'm saying? Because all of the girls on the show literally said to her, if I found out these things about my guy, I wouldn't have stayed. And this is 4 out of 5 women. So I'm sitting here like, yeah, they all know what time it is. Once you start hearing stuff like that, it's just like, all right, annulment asexually, because the longer you stay with that person, you're being physically intimate with this person when he told you he was not attracted to you. So that's the first thing. Well, not even the first thing. That's one of many things, but you're being physically intimate with this person. They told you not attracted to you. They're gaslighting you. They're still kind of on the fence about their ex. Those are all of the signs that you need to abort mission and run as fast as you can. But for whatever reason, homegirl is just sitting there like, oh, well, God this and God that and da 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 da. And it's just like, I could understand all of those things if it was a situation where, you know, they were together for a long time and, you know, something happened and maybe a side baby came out of it. And it's like, okay, well, now you got to decide what we're going to do. But we're an established married couple. Like, again, to each his own. Maybe you wouldn't be able to deal with that, but I could understand why somebody would want to move forward with something like that. But this particular thing, I'm just like, y'all just started and he's already doing all of this. Like, sis, what are you holding on to? What's really good? Like, do you not feel like you're worth being with someone that wants to be with you, or, you know, being with somebody that's not going to bring you all of this extra drama? Like, do you not feel like you're worth it? Because that's typically what it is. When we stick to suffering and being with people who are not really honoring us, it's because we don't believe that we deserve the honor, right? And it's almost like there may have been something that happened in your childhood or something that happened in the past that got you addicted to suffering. So no matter what you do, you continue to either gravitate towards relationships and situations that are going to make you suffer, or you tend to stay in situations where you're suffering because the suffering is familiar to you and you don't even realize that you're doing it. Again, been there, done that. But it's one of those things that once you realize it, it's like you can't even like tolerate being in that type of relationship or allowing anybody to do that to you, because you're really doing it to yourself. Once you allow it, once you realize something is happening and you allow it to continue, then at that point, you're literally suffering because you want to. And I know that it sounds, you know, simple, but it's one of those things like you have to be mentally ready to cut off and or disband yourself from anyone that causes that level of suffering, because you're going to suffer with everybody, right? Friends, family, relationships, whatever. You're always going to suffer, but there's suffering that is understandable and kind of worth it in a sense. And then there's suffering that's just like, this is not even necessary. So something leads me to believe that Paige doesn't really love herself or know herself. And so I don't really think that she's really ready to be married to begin with, but that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. And I definitely know for a fact Chris is not ready to be anybody's husband. Chris out here playing games. But yeah, so that's what's going on with that. Either way, the new episode is on Wednesday. This video should be up by like Tuesday or Wednesday. So I will keep you guys posted on the next Get Ready With Me, and we could talk about what happened after that. I think this situation is ridiculous. And as someone who is currently dating and kind of seeing what's out there, I feel like those are all of the red flags. And the minute you find out stuff like that, you need to make exit left. Now, again, everybody has their own threshold. I can't tell anybody what they should or shouldn't accept or what they should or shouldn't deal with. That's not my goal. But there are certain things that it's just kind of like, if somebody can't even be upfront with you and keep it consistent, then it's kind of like, what's the point, right? Like if he had said to her, okay, I know for a fact that this woman is having my child, but I want to be with you, and the behavior after the statement matched up, even if he's not 100% consistent or he doesn't always know the right thing to do or say, that's okay, but the intention is still the same. But the intentions are all across the board here. So I just feel like in general, when it comes to dating, relationships, whatever, I think that whenever you are dealing with somebody and that person is inconsistent, that inconsistency should pretty much tell you everything that you need to know. Because what I know about people in human nature is when we want something, we work towards it. And if we don't want it, then we create all of the excuses, we create roadblocks, maybe we're not ready for it, whatever it is. But whenever you see somebody is kind of like hemming and hawing, or they're wishy-washy and one day they are, one day they aren't, that's not somebody that you need to involve yourself with, because all it's going to do for you is create turmoil and confusion for you. And nobody wants to be in a constant state of turmoil or confusion. But that is my 2 cents. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, Glow fam. This is what the makeup look is looking like. Okay, haven't done this in a while, so that was kind of cool. But I'm about to go wash all of this stuff off my face and we about to go chill. I actually have some other stuff that I have to do tonight, so I'm not chilling yet. But I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have not already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Hit that like if you enjoy my videos, and hit that notification bell if you'd like to see when I post additional videos. Thanks for watching, Glow fam. Bye.